Getting started pretty quickly, we'll move to the city administrator report. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to note that we're kicking off the April cleanup campaign citywide. And, as part of this, we discussed it in the past, we're going to broaden it from just the cleanup week into the cleanup month. And what we've done is, thanks to Danny and his crew, is placed dumpsters around various locations in the city. And just quickly, I'll read some of these locations that you can take your garbage and debris to. Matthews Park, Peter Street, West Marable Street at the Water Tower, the area of Booth Drive and Oak Street around the old Carver School, Magnolia and Harris Streets kind of in front of the old Legion, 1101 South Madison, which is across from the Quick Pick Food Mart, Toller Street at EC Kid Park, Walker Drive down at the service entrance near the creek, Childers Park in the parking lot of the library, and we'll have one coming to Hammond Park pretty soon. So that's a pretty big undertaking by the solid waste staff, so I really appreciate their effort here during this cleanup month. Yesterday I had a good ride around with our GDOT district engineer, and we laid eyes on projects along with some county officials, and we were very Monroe-centric, looking at current projects, things that are about to be let, and many of our future needs here. So it's good that we have the ears and the in-person assistance from our GDOT district engineer right now in Monroe. Also, our service delivery strategy, it's getting close to finishing up to a draft document that I can circulate to you all soon. We talked about this in a little bit more detail last Thursday night at the municipal meeting, but we have just a couple more small meetings amongst the managers to try to get some of the background documents in order together, and then we'll be circulating that to you. And then we hope for adoption by June. Of course, the deadline is June 30th for us to have that adopted, so that'll be coming up quickly.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny, for all the work that you're undertaking this month. I'm hoping and feel very promising that our city residents are going to take advantage of you getting those rollers out for us. Also want to remind you that April 27th is Community Cleanup Day. I've asked all of the churches to get involved to clean up the areas within the 2 or 3 blocks around their churches, and also asked them to send their youth groups to City Hall that morning, and Sadie will be coordinating those events that morning. Moving to the Central Services update, Mr. Bailey.
Don't really have a lot this month as far as buy-in. Y'all pretty much approved everything last month, so we've got all that on order as far as drive-through. The police department, we should start seeing shipments come in with our roof and everything exterior. I was warned that it was several tractor-trailer loads, so I'll be anxious to see that get started. On the facilities side, our bids should be back towards the end of this week for Old City Hall, Public Works Building, and the Art Guild. From what I understand, everything is under budget for what we presented in the CIP, so that's good. Allows us to maybe do something else, or we just save that money and put it back. On the newsletter, marketing side, our energy newsletter is pretty much close to done. Logan and I are reviewing that before we send that out to everyone, Monroe. And then we've put together a Government 101 newsletter that's about 15 pages long, I think, to kind of send out to all our employees to help educate on how things work, how the budget's structured, just everything kind of in our daily operations to help everyone. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey?
Do planners fall under that?
I had that wrote down, didn't I? Figured somebody'd ask. They should be placed within the next week and a half, hopefully, if weather allows for it. And, you know, knock on wood, everything goes smoothly. Our hopes are to set the new ones, remove the old ones at the same time, clip the water line that actually goes in there, and then once we set those, level the ground near the trees so they set level. to where some of them aren't right now, rerun that water line, and then discussed it with Lisa Anderson. And I know the DDA board approved the money to replant everything. So, you know, I think you told me May 1st you wanted it to see it done, and I think I'm pretty sure we'll be there. So everything should look good. So let's just hope nothing falls apart and goes.
Let's not even mention that. It'll be great.
That's
Thank you.
possible. If it can, it will.
Are there any other questions? One thing I do want to mention with those tractor trailer loads with parking at a premium, do we need to block off any part of the lot on any particular day? Do we know an exact date?
We'll be fine at Plaza. Or no, you're talking about downtown or the police department?
I'm talking about, I thought we had something that was coming over to the drive-through.
Oh, no, that'll be fine. No, that's going to the police department, if I did misspeak.
Okay.
That's what was ordered to do all that. So, yeah, we've got that, we got all that covered. And then the drive-through, as soon as that equipment comes in, we'll kind of coordinate with Beth on what the best week or week and a half, 2 weeks maybe, is to shut it down and make sure we give proper notification.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move into committee information. Mr. Adcock, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. This time, Ms. Thompson will give the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Wayne. You have the monthly financial report in front of you for February. As of February, we should be at about 17% utilization, and all departments have been at or around that, so everyone's staying within budget. And speaking of, I've started meeting with different departments, and will continue to do so within the month of March, in the month of April for March reports, to go over all quarterly budgets within each department to make sure everyone understands their budget and stays within their budget. I met with RV and Treadwell and some of their staff last week and gave them access to the Encode Express software, which is a new software that we can give to employees and department heads for their budget. So they're on board with that and starting to utilize that. And I hope to roll that out to other areas within each department, not just department heads, but their foremans and those that are responsible for those budgets within each department. And we're still waiting on final numbers from the auditors and have started working on the CAFR and hope to bring you that hopefully in May, potentially in June, depending on when we get those final numbers from them. That's all I have. We didn't have a whole lot going on. If y'all have any questions.
Hearing no questions, that's all we have this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Quick and painless. Moving to the airport committee, Mr. Garrett.
Chris Bailey.
Again, airport with the east-west apron projects. The east project, the apron is open. So all we have left is a gutter at the end to stop some of the erosion that's running off of the extra pavement that we've put in. And then the west side, we're working back and forth with streets to get the additional excavation. And I kind of feel like that's probably going to go into maybe the end of May before we do that, just so that we can time things out right with Bill Scott's event and not interrupt that to where we're hoping grass will grow and don't get too much mud in his way. I did include the DOT inspection report that was given to us that we had February 15th, and that was some of the results and issues that they brought up. It's some tree issues, not too many, nothing that we have to worry about this year. There's a couple grading issues. There's a storm drain that needs to be lowered, the cover, which should be fairly easy. I've talked to Mr. Middlebrooks about that. Markings that are faded and essentially just kind of covered with mildew. Instead of spending $50,000 to repaint and restripe all that, we're going to go with a pressure washing concept and see if we can't save a lot of money and buy some time until they actually do a paving overlay. And then that would be included to restripe everything. So that should happen next week. But other than that, I mean, nothing was major. Just little things that we've kind of got to tidy up in-house, typical standard report. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
you've got a pretty active committee, and I appreciate that they took time out of their schedules to meet out at the airport that day. Always get an earful.
Yeah, they tend to be passionate.
Well, as well they should. You know, they should be passionate about our hometown. So,
Well, and it does them good, I mean, especially on site to kind of see and hear the explanation at the same time of what we're doing and what's going on. Sometimes it's easier to remember what you see than what you hear.
it's really impressive what you put together out there.
Thanks, sir.
That'll be all.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Public Works, Mr. Dickinson.
Mr. Smith, solid waste.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dixon. Just want to highlight February tonnage report. We collected over 1,000, close to 1,042 tons of waste. Over half of it was on the commercial side. We're on the plus side as far as the deposit in the transfer station compared to this time last year, so that's a good thing. We're also going to extend the Friday to 5 o'clock again this month, the month of April. Kind of doing it month to month to see how it's working for everybody. So far, so good. We got 2 projects that we'll be getting into, of course, the tipping floor and the drainage project. We'll be looking at talking to some vendors about the tipping floor within the next 2 months. The only other thing I have, Logan already mentioned it, citywide cleanup. The only other thing I want to mention, we will put out signs at the dumpsters so we can give some direction, especially with the scrap tires and the paint. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
Are we running that street sweeper full? We're good with that?
Well, we're waiting on it. We've contacted the vendor and the rep. We just keep getting these reasons why it hadn't been delivered yet. So I think we may be discussing that agreement and try to get something done.
I thought I'd been missing it. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no.
We have a backup, but it's not doing too well either.
Okay. So let me know next month.
Okay, sure.
All right, Mr. Still, Streets and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Just highlighting a few areas from the February report. Well, you have it there in front of you. Our sign and markings division's putting out some new signs, cleaning some. The fleet maintenance division continues to do preventative and corrective maintenance on the city's fleet. Street department's currently making use of the good weather, finishing up some sidewalk projects, as well as catching up on some utility cuts, patching, as well as bad places in the road that have come out from the winter. Doing that, we have pretty good access right now to available hot mix, which makes a better patch, better transition in the road than the cold patch we're getting. Right-of-way crews out, mowing, picking up trash on a regular basis now, and we're doing our best to wrap up the leaf season and put that truck up for a few months. We're still periodically going out as we get work orders. We had a pretty good weekend weather-wise this past one, and there was some stuff put out over the weekend as expected, so we're knocking those out as they're called in. But it's not running every day. It's more of a sporadic, as needed right now. But maybe within the next couple of weeks, we'll have all that under control, and it'll be parked for a while. Other than that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Moving to Mr. Nathan Little, Utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Thompson, electric and telecom report.
First thing, there's a mistake. Number one should say the North Broad Street trees have been delivered. And we did get our tree gators in today, so we'll start installing them over the next few days. And we'll get with Mr. Steele to fill those things full of water. Construction started on Second Street, and this, if you'll remember, is for the project that loops the power in behind the mill. If you've seen that gigantic hole that they've dug for water retention on the north side of that project, that red pipe there is our power line, and that thing has to be decommissioned so they can finish that project. So we're building around the back to feed that from the backside of that project. So we got all the poles set, but one, start stringing wire next week, and that should be put to bed here shortly. All y'all probably noticed out on Spring Street, the MEAG 115 line that's been reconstructed with the super tall 105-foot concrete poles. We've talked about this off and on over 8-9 months. Those poles were constructed or poured with the facilities to place our facilities onto those poles. And my next item is our Spring Street distribution design. We're finalizing that distribution design to fit, to move our poles back in line with the new poles and pull out all the old wooden, raggedy-looking poles that have been there since, some of them since the 60s. This will be, as we discussed earlier, with a ductile iron pole that requires no guying. So you won't have all the guy wires sticking everywhere. And we will have a vertical construction of our new line, which will make it look a lot cleaner and a lot less messy. This is all in conjunction with making that corridor coming into town just look a lot better. We should have that design finished next week, and then we will start reaching out for bid of materials and start talking to contractors. And I hope to have something to y'all early to midsummer to vote on to move forward. The new meter testing equipment is in service, and the beauty of it is it took our time to test a residential meter from a week to 3.5 minutes. And it's really been resonating with the customers. They get a little printout that shows them exactly what their meter did. Before, we had 2 meters side by side, and we had to add and subtract to see which, we had a verified meter in their meter, and we let it run for a week, and we'd go back and add and subtract and then do the math. And it just didn't come across to the customer as well. This device is taking our standard small commercial testing down from 30 minutes to 5 minutes. So it's really cutting the time down. So we're picking up the amount of meters we test a month. Continue to test to give, let the public and not only the residential customers, but the commercial customers feel good that their meter is reading correctly. The conduit for the telecom is installed in Stone Creek. It was actually installed with the power. We are starting to tap into that and get the fiber in there. The pond equipment, the passive optical network equipment that runs the fiber inside that network has been installed and tested at our device down here at the the water tower. And they are, as we, yesterday and today, splicing the fibers up to make that connection. And we will be moving forward with that project. And that is all I have, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Middlebrooks.
Thank you,
Water
Mr. Stewart. Just a couple updates. The gas lights on City Hall been finished up. Get a chance. The lanterns are hung out front. Look really well at night. Get a chance to take a look at those. Also, the gas main, the Ash Street project has been completed. So everything's done on that one. We also, next Tuesday, they will start the interior and exterior renovation of the Norris Street water tank. So that tank will be out of the commission for about 3 weeks. May notice a little bit of drop in pressure, but shouldn't be that noticeable. And also, we had one purchase in our CIP item was the air compressors, something that we had budgeted $54,000 for. We were contacted by United Rental. They was having a sale on used equipment, and we was able to purchase those units with low hours at a savings of $24,000. And then one other item, we have moved into the new offices at the water plant. Those are complete. Started operations there yesterday, and that's all I got. Any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Rodney. Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, sir. Move into Mr. Bradley, Public Safety.
Yes, we'll start with the fire department, and Chief Owens is not with us tonight. He's at a conference this week. Talk about him maybe more next week with one of the events that happened while he was there, kind of thing. But we have Captain White with us tonight to give us the fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. As he mentioned, Chief Owens and the other senior fire officers are all at the Fire Chiefs Conference this week. In February, we answered a total of 212 calls. Our recruit class is still ongoing and in progress. Everything's going well with it. We plan to begin hydrant testing sometime this month. We'll coordinate with the water department, and we'll be making those announcements of the dates through local media and our social media outlets. That's pretty much it. Any questions? I'll be glad to give you the answer.
Anyone have any questions? We move to the police department, and the chief's also out of town, and so we have Captain Trevor with us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bradley. In the month of February, we had 3,324 calls, 99 adult arrests, 6 juvenile arrests. Community events, we had the chocolate walk and carriage ride that we provided security for. Participated with Dancing with the Stars with Brent Davis. He was involved in that. We've also implemented the downtown foot beat, which would take an officer during the day and have them go and walk downtown with the business owners, go in and meet them. That way the business owners, if they got a question, instead of coming to the police department, they know an officer's going to come by, and they could talk to them there. The call volume between January and February went up from 3,086 calls to 3,324. It could be part of the weather because it's been a little warmer. We had a total of 6,410 calls in the month this year. Citations compared to February 18 are about the same. February 18, we had 463 citations issued. February 19, we had 462. Our Part 1 crimes, which is homicide, rape, armed robbery, your major felonies, is down from last year 21%. And arrests this year compared to last year's are down 15%. And that's about it, Mr. Bradley. Y'all got anything?
I don't know whether this is a question for you or maybe Logan, but are we getting anything happening with the right turn only at the end of McDaniel at Broad? Are you noticing any traffic better down there?
The right turn at where?
McDaniel, where it comes into South Broad?
I haven't noticed, Mr. Bradley.
Just anecdotally, I've staked out over there at CVS just to watch the traffic multiple times a day between that 7 and 7, and it seems to help a lot. I haven't seen any backups on Wayne Street. I really didn't notice anybody turning left.
I hadn't either.
That's good. And how about the new speed limit of 25 coming right through town? Have we done that yet? Is that posted?
That is posted. GDOT posted that last week, and I've seen Georgia State Patrol out here, and I know Monroe's been posted up as well, monitoring that speed limit.
Yes. We, Georgia State Patrol can write a ticket anywhere. We have to have certain areas that Georgia State Patrol approves for us. We have to have 500 feet of distance, and we can't hide, and Georgia State Patrol can hide. They can do anything they want to because they're governed by the state. There's certain streets we can't actually write speeding tickets on as far as running radar and stuff like that.
Any other questions? That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Moving to Ms. Malcolm, Planning and Code.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you very much. The report for the Code Department for February, pretty much the same as normal. We had 53 code inspections, had 10 new businesses get their business license, had 3 that were closed. Major projects that were permitted at that time. Murphy Oil, you might have all noticed they've got their gas station shut down. They're completely scraping and rebuilding that to add a C-store there along with the additional pumps. Silver Queen finally getting a break in the weather, and they're their plans finalized for some revisions. Are getting going with their footings now and subwalls. The Main Street apartment complex is underway, and South on Broad is moving right along as well. The city marshal removed 43 signs from the roadway. He wrote 146 repair cleanup orders, investigated 3 tampering and theft cases, and wrote 6 citations. In historic preservation, they issued 2 certificates of appropriateness, one for a new house at 700 East Church Street, and for some exterior changes at 118 Bold Springs Avenue. You all familiar with the remainder of that with the Planning Commission things that you just voted on last month. So if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Mr. Propst is taking Mr. Ross Bradley's place on economic development tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll hit the report quickly tonight. We already discussed the cleanup effort. We had mailers go out already, and I think they were at everyone's mailbox at the very beginning of the month, which was yesterday. One of the big things that Economic Development's been working on is updating the marketing brochure, which is attached in conjunction with NextSite. And what that does is redefines our trade patterns and our territory and shows what our gap is, what retailers or other businesses would be attractive to our area. And they go after these retailers nationwide at different trade conferences and just utilizing their contacts. So that's been updated. City of Monroe, via Sadie, was asked to present on a panel for the Georgia Planning Association Spring Conference in Decatur. That was on 3/27, regarding housing efforts and the successes and failures and lessons learned through the GIG program over the past few years. We've kind of been a model city to a lot of other ones that are going through that program. On the event front, you have the event card in front of you that's been updated for 2019. The most immediate one is going to be the Dock Dogs and Paws in the Park, which is coming up on April 13th and 14th. Dock Dogs will be the 2-day event, and Paws in the Park will be that 1-day event on the Saturday. And that'll be our debut event at the town green, even though it doesn't look like much yet. It's good to go ahead and start getting some use out of that facility. That's all I have for right now, Mayor.
A little bit going on. Thank you. Ms. Crawford, Parks.
Actually, we don't have anything for the parks as of now, but in the upcoming months around June, we should be having something to report about for parks.
I think you're going to have quite a bit to report about. Thank you. Moving to items for discussion, the rezone at 1600 East Church Street. Mr. Stone?
Yes. The project was tabled for 60 days. The applicant during that time has requested and officially withdrawn the rezoning request. So at this time, he is not requesting the rezone.
Do we know what is in his plans? Is he looking for another?
No, he's not made any other mention what his plans may be, but officially he's just withdrawn his request for the rezone.
Okay.
We just wanted to put that out for discussion. There will be no action needed, but it just officially withdraws that.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions from Mr. Stone? Thank you. Moving the next point is the appointment for the library board. Ms. Carolyn Yates has resigned her position on the board. The library's recommendation is to appoint Ms. Hope Reese to fill the vacant position on the library board. The council will vote on this next week. Also, another appointment for the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Mitch Alligood's term will expire on May 1st, 2019. He'd like to continue to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission, and we'll vote on that next week as well. Moving to the second reading for the speed zone ordinance amendment, Mr. Propst to discuss.
Thank you, Mayor. This was already on the agenda for our second reading, but I've heard from some of you that you may want to amend this list of roadways for the off-system portion, whether we're lacking some segments that are even on here, or amend the speed limits of some of the segments that are on here as well. It's going to be my recommendation that we stick with what we have here tonight. However, we can start some speed studies on some of these segments that you may have concerns over. And we may already have some valid speed studies that were done recently. And then what we can do is later amend this list and petition GDOT to revise this. So we kind of go through this process over again. I know it's a little bit cumbersome, but I had legal research some of the outstanding issues here. And Jesse, if you want to elaborate a little bit on what we're finding with the speed zones.
Thank you, Logan. Yeah, the city does have, full authority to set speed limits on streets that are designated as off-system. And these speeds are set in accordance with state law recommendations regarding the commercial area, residential area, that sort of thing. But DOT reserves and has the final approval over these speeds for radar permit purposes. And the biggest concern that would raise would be enforcement, meaning if the city is inclined to reduce a speed limit on a street, then DOT could approve or deny that reduction, and it doesn't accomplish exactly what we're trying to if the radar permit speed is not approved, because is our work that we also do as solicitors in the court. We have to follow what that says as opposed to what's posted. And so when they say grace over these permit speeds for approval, that's kind of one of the reasons we came to that conclusion, that it might require a little bit more looking into instead of arbitrarily raising or lowering any speeds. I do understand there are certain streets that we're looking to add in and possibly amend at a future time anyway. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of the quick summation of it. Is it would not be our recommendation for the city to lower speeds without current data or proper data in order to hopefully change enforcement when that might cause conflict with the radar permitted speed, which is also what Captain Treadwell was referring to.
The question I have is, and I raised this a year ago, and I'm still not sure. How do we determine what streets go on this report and which ones don't?
So you all make the determination, but it's really been set by history. So hate to use the phrase, it's always been that way, but it's always been that way. So without us going back and amending it with a petition to GDOT, that's really the only way to get it done. And we can do that, but so our recommendation now is let's pass what we have in front of us that keeps us compliant, and then staff is going to go out there and get all these studies done that we can then submit in that petition, and with your approval on these different segments that are not there, we'll take all of your input on what you'd like to see on there and what speeds you'd like to see on those segments. Then we'll go forward with that next process.
And I agree with your recommendation to go ahead and do something. I just don't understand how we leave off
And we miss those.
major segments of major streets. That's not even talking about whether the speed limit's right or wrong.
Right.
Not even speed limit may be a good one, but if it's not on this list, then our police department can't do radar on it, correct? And one I raised to you the other day is McDaniel from Breedlove to Michael Edson.
Yeah, there's a lot of gaps that we need to fill.
I can answer that question. The problem with that is they have regulation, not only a sight distance, but you have an incline regulation, which I think is 7%, and any road that has that much or more city can't run radar, and that's the problem on that section of McDaniel.
Yeah.
And another one that Jeremiah had been contacted on, and then most recently I was contacted on by a resident in the area, is the at the Legends, the speed limit changes from 35 to 45 all the way to, not very far, to the city limits. And their request was that we change that strip to back to 35, which we felt like if we just set it at 35 coming into Monroe from the Jersey Road all the way to Breedlove intersection, that would help to monitor that speed all the way in. But that would be one we would need. There has been a traffic study done, and the speeds were in excess. Average speed was 58? 52, so I think it's warranted to look at it, and really kind of makes sense since we're thinking about doing the four-way at Breedlove and Alcovey. So I just don't want to let that be forgotten.
We'll definitely put all those together. And if you have any other suggestions, just call me or email me, and we'll start studying those. And of course, like Captain Treadwell said, we can always talk to our friends at GSP and see if they can pick up a little bit more enforcement in some of those areas that we find harder to patrol as well.
I'm glad to see the new 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs out in the downtown corridor. We needed those, and hopefully people will heed caution.
Thank you for your input, everybody. Moving to the first reading of the zoning ordinance code text amendment number 7. Mr. Stone?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank all the council members for the planning retreat and mayor that we went by and went through of all the criteria, and also the special work committee in getting the final product where we're at. Many thanks to Patrick and also Logan for their insight in this. This has been a team effort, and we're really kind of excited for hopefully what we can get going forward with this text amendment and code amendment going forward. This is the official zoning of the city of Monroe, the 7th Amendment, and I'm going to briefly touch on the highlights of the changes that we're looking at. We've created an overlay district called the Infill Overlay District. It's applicable to R1A, R2, and MH. And in addition to that, we had Section 610. It used to be an R3. Now it's been rezoned, not rezoned, but coded MH, just making sure we're congruent with our zoning map. Also in Section 640, the overlay districts, that's the one that we just added or proposing to add, is the overlay district, infill overlay district, which are superimposed over the existing zoning districts that have special requirements. Also in Section 643, the boundaries of the corridor, we've added Highway 78 to be included in that as well. Now, more specifically on the infill overlay district, the purpose of that is design infill parcels within close proximity of the central business district for high-density, single-family detached dwellings to encourage in-town living. Specific focus on walkable communities close to the central business district. The applicability is this is going to allow all the areas that are zoned R1A, R2, and MH a maximum of 10 single-family detached dwelling units per gross acre will be allowed. It can only be applied, the IOD can only be applied to parcels up to 3 acres in the aggregate that are zoned R1A. Then we've pushed it beyond that. Greater than 3 acres can only be applied to parcels R2 and MH. And I'd like for you to look back here at this map if you can. I've highlighted the areas in black that you see as the R2, and if you look, they kind of interrelate to the green areas, which are the R1A. And we have a total of 737 R2 parcels and 13 MH parcels. The goal is to have quality housing for everyone, and we believe as we incentivize this, that's what we're going to end up getting. That's what the goal is. Now, the maximum units for the IOD project shall not exceed 100 units per development. All existing infill will require a total structure removal unless specific historic structures are approved to be remained by the code officer. All proposed developments that exceed 30 units will be required to have open space such as recreation, pool, playground, et cetera, and fitness centers. I want to also discuss what the dimensional requirements are going to be. Initially, under the R1A, it was 7,500. In the IOD, it's going from 7,500 now to 4,000 square feet for your lot size. It was 5 units per acre for R1A. Now it's going down up to 10 units per acre. It used to be lot coverage was 40%. Now we're going to allow 50% lot coverage. It used to be the building, front building line used to be 75 feet. Now with a smaller size, it'll be 50 feet. The setbacks for the front yard used to be 40. Now it's going to be pushed to 10 so it can be up close to the road. The setbacks for the side used to be 25, now it's going to be 6. The setbacks for the rear was 25, now 20. Again, the building minimum square footage will be 1,300. Also, in section 645, the design elements, I just want to bring out a few things. The minimum pitch will be 512. Also, the dwelling units of the IOD development with less than 30 units shall be constructed on crawl space or basements, and all foundation walls will be brick or stone. There will be no front garage approach permitted, rear or side approach garage entry only. Also, on 645.6, we talk about minimum design standards. Our goal is not to dictate percentages. We'll let enterprise do that, but we want to have sustainable materials such as brick, stone, and cement. Cement-type products like hardy planking. Also, if you look at the very last one, I want to bring to the attention that dwelling units constructed on slab on grade are prohibited on the IOD developments that are under 30 units. But if it's over 30 units, this is part of the incentivization. It'll be applied to only the R2 and the MH. 30, if it's over 30, you can allow slab on grades. Another important component to this would be 645.7, the roads and streets connectivity. Over 30 units shall have multiple existing street connectivity. At a minimum, 2 ingress and egress streets shall provide access through the development. All of the IOD developments shall provide for 16-foot wide rear-loaded paved alleyways where possible. Also, under 645.8, this was brought to our attention, and we I think got a great strategy going forward. If it's over 30 units, they will be required to have a homeowners association. Under 30 units, you won't. And you go to section 700 where it talks about the R1, R1A, R2, and MH dimensional requirements. I want to highlight a few things. First of all, at the very top, there's a note, number 8. Number 8 is going to be required for developments that are over 30 units. It'll apply to the R1, R1A, R2, and MH, and it'll be required for an impact study as prescribed by the code enforcement officer to address the proposed development's impact on our community during its impact for the vehicular traffic, utilities, and school system capacity. We think that's very important moving forward because we've got to be careful how we develop and make sure that the impacts are taken and designed for. And R1, other than that, R1 does not change. R1A was 7,500. It's a little bit confusing, but R1A is still R1A, but we're going back to what the original ones to make sure that we can incentivize the IOD overlay. And it will go from 7,500 square feet back to what it was originally, was 10,000 square feet, from 5 units per acre back to 4, what it used to be, with the minimum setbacks on the front yard from 6 to 10, and that's the biggest changes on those. As far as R2 is concerned, the minimum lot size are going to replicate R1A at a minimum being 10,000 square feet. No changes on MH, but we want to make some clarity on R2 and MH as far as building area minimum square footage for the 800 square foot for the 1 bedrooms. That's going to be the minimum. These are both the same on MH as well as R2. The bedrooms for 1,000 square feet would be two. For the two-bedroom, it'd be 1,000 square feet, and three-bedroom would be a minimum of 1,200 square feet. Finally, the one thing to look at is the major change would be for the R2 on as far as materials. All multifamily dwelling units located in the city shall be constructed 100% brick veneers. I just wanted to highlight that. You have the whole package, but these are the major impacts that we're looking at. We're really hopeful moving forward that this will incentivize quality housing for all. At this time, do y'all have any questions?
I have one, and I think it's, because I don't totally understand. In the overlay district, which I like the idea to incentivize quality housing coming in. The question I have, in the overlay district, if someone has a house there that's bad shape, it's torn down, they want to rebuild. The homeowner is there, wants to rebuild a house, not a new development. Does it have to meet the building specifications for the overlay district?
I don't know if I've ever thought that thoroughly. Logan, you got any insight on that?
No, because the IOD would not be applicable. They've not applied for it to be overlaid.
It's not necessarily all the buildings in that geographic district.
They would have to petition to have that IOD applied to that property. Now, if you're just saying that it's in a general area and they want to tear down a house and rebuild, they would have to do it to current city code standards.
Right.
And basically what we have here is a revision of the R1, R1A, which is going to replace the outgoing moratorium as it expires later this month, and the R2 and the MH. So all of that's being updated and changed. And then you also have this infill overlay district that can be applied to certain qualifying properties.
But the infill overlay district then is not a geographic district.
It's not.
It's an application to apply it to other zoning currently.
Correct. Correct. And as you see on the map, those are highlighted in black. Those are specific areas that could have it applied, but are not necessarily automatically included in that overlay district.
Even if someone wanted to do a development under current zoning and not apply for that, then they would not have to meet these.
No, they would not, you know, if they choose to do R1A and it's, you know, aggregately could be up to 3 acres. If they choose to do the 10,000 square feet, they're more than welcome to do that. The incentivization, I don't know why they would want not to do that because of the potential money that would be involved and the profit that would be involved, but they don't have to. They may not decide that they want to do rear alley drives or anything of that sort. They want to stay with the, and so they could go back
to the large lots.
They go back to the.
They just don't get the yield.
They wouldn't get the yield.
They wouldn't get the yield
right.
that the overlay would allow.
So that's flexibility for the existing homeowner who wants to tear down their old home and rebuild a new one on the same lot and not change the density requirements. Fine, they can do that. It'll just revert back to the updated table that you see here.
Right. It would just be their current lot that they're on.
Yeah. Yeah, no change other than current building codes and requirements.
But this gives that same homeowner that might have a lot that's 3/4 of an acre, the option to tear down that home, come back and apply for the IOD, and turn that into, what, 3 lots or more? I mean, depending on, you know, how it played out, the topography and everything. So that could be an option too.
The existing lots that are out there today would be at least the size of our minimum R1A
So, I mean, I don't think that's gonna change it at all. So you have, let's say there's an area of town that is currently R1A, and they wanna aggregate something, 3-acre parcel of various R1A lots. Then they can choose to apply the IOD if they're gonna build more than one home. Or they can leave it as is and just keep that one home there. They can leave it on 1 acre, they can leave it on ½ acre or 3 acres. So there's flexibility in the design of this.
But the IOD could go down to as little as a 4,000 square foot lot, correct?
That is if all the stars align.
Right.
Yes.
And just to comment on that, I think what you're going to see happen is if folks are in one of these districts that are eligible for IOD, and they have houses that are in good shape, owner-occupied, so on and so forth, they're not going to come in and say, well, I want to tear this down and make it an IOD. What I think you'll see happen where the IODs will go is houses that need to come down anyway and need to be replaced with quality houses. This gives somebody who wants to do that development, and these will be small developers. These are not going to be these big national companies that come in and build a bunch of junk and run back to wherever they came from. These will be local folks, developers, small scale, that simply want to build good, decent, quality housing. Now they have an incentive to do it. They have the incentive to make it close into town where it's walkable and it's everything that we've been talking about. And Lord, I hope this works.
I agree with that.
But it won't adversely affect folks who don't want to do
That's what I just want
it.
to be sure we don't
Yeah,
promote one thing and sacrifice to somebody else.
I agree with you 100%.
And procedurally, we need to have Mr. Couch.
Right. Before we do that, are there any additional questions or comments for Mr. Stone? Mr. Stone, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Probst, very well thought out. I appreciate the time that it took to do that, and I know you've been picking them up and putting them down, so thank you. Mr. Couch, I think I need a reading from you.
Thank you, Mayor. This will take a moment. This is an ordinance to amend the official zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe, Georgia. The mayor and the council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the following sections of the official zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe, Georgia are hereby amended with amendment number 7 of said zoning ordinance by deleting said sections in their entirety and substituting the following in lieu thereof. Section 300, Table 1, Districts. Section 610.3, Residential Land Use Regulations. Section 640, Overlay Districts. Section 643.3, Boundaries of the Corridor. Section 645, Infill Overlay District. Section 645.1, Intent and Purpose. Section 645.2, Applicability. Section 645.3, Permitted Uses. Section 645.4, Density, Open Space, Setback, Parking Requirements. Table 9, Infill Overlay District Dimensional Requirements. Section 645.5, Dwelling Unit Size, Dwelling Unit Design, Site Design Elements. Section 645.6, Design Specifications. Section 645.7, Roads and Streets Connectivity. Section 645.8, Homeowner Association. Section 700.1, R1, R1A, R2, MH Dimensional Requirements. Section 700.1, Table 11-1, Residential Zoning District Dimensional Requirements. Notes for Table 11, Section 700.1. Article 9, Building Design, Section 900 General, Section 910 Residential Building Design Standards, Section 910.1 Single and Two-Family Dwellings, and Section 910.2 Multi-Family Dwellings. The attached Exhibit A will provide a complete text of the above referenced sections of the official zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe, Georgia. Exhibit A would contain the following, as discussed: Section 300 Districts, Section 610.3 Residential Land Use Regulations, R1, R1A, MH, and R2. Section 640 overlay districts, HPO, A-H, CDO, MHDO, IOD, Section 643.3 boundaries of the corridor, Section 645 infill overlay district, Section 645.1 intent and purpose, Section 645.2 applicability, Section 645.3 permitted uses, Section 645.4 density, open space, setback, parking requirements, infill overlay district dimensional requirements contained in Table 9, 645.5 dwelling unit size, dwelling unit design, site design elements, Section 645.6 design specifications, Section 645.7 roads and streets connectivity, Section 645.8 homeowner associations, Section 700.1 R1, R1A, R2, RMH dimensional requirements, Section 700.1, Table 11, residential zoning district dimensional requirements. Notes for Table 11, Section 700.1. Article 9, building design, Section 900 general, Section 910, residential building design standards, Section 910.1, single and two-family dwellings, Section 910.2, multifamily dwellings. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and council of the city of Monroe, Georgia. That would constitute the first reading this second day of April 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. You can take a breath. Are there any questions for Mr. Couch? Hearing none, and I believe that brings us to the end of the evening. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by, we're going to go with Ms. Crawford. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.